So this coming via Quartz, but a lot of different websites reported on it. Apple hobbled a crucial tool of dissent in China weeks before widespread protests broke out. Anti-government demonstrations. We've been seeing this stuff pop up as well, not just on Twitter, but elsewhere on social media. Protests in China breaking out. We see the white suits. We don't know what to make of it, Will. It's all so vague as well. We're trying to read translations and we're trying to figure out what's real, what's really happening. But of course, what ends up getting out from China is not necessarily the whole story most of the time. Mm-hmm. And so we're left to have to fill in the blanks as we scroll through hashtag China protests 2022. But it is interesting the change that Apple made to the way AirDrop was working, because apparently since social media is in China, the government has involvement in the terms that are allowed to be used, topics that are allowed to be talked about and things like this, that there is a management of what's approved, or there's just way more reach into social media directly from the government, or at least a different way in which that reach takes place. Whether you're talking about WeChat or if you're talking about the social media sites, Weibo and whatever other sharing sites exist, where people are nervous or incapable of talking about what's going on. So apparently the local people there had been using AirDrop as a means for private communication, sharing of media and so forth around the topic of these protests. Mm-hmm. Now, previous to this update, and this is all developing really recently. The change happened November 9th, iOS 16.1.1. You could say it's a coincidence. I don't know why this function would be something you would want in China specifically. I don't personally use AirDrop. Previously, you had three options inside of AirDrop. You could turn receiving off. You could have receiving from contacts only, or you could receive from everyone. And we've seen actually locally where companies would use it as a promotional mechanism. Mm-hmm. You have AirDrop turned on, and then it would be like, everybody in this music festivals would use it to share information.
Networking conventions.
Exactly. Yeah. And so everybody turn on your AirDrop and have some fun. So this is the way it looks for you right now. And this is the way it used to look in China up until November 9th. And the way it looks now is the everyone selection is only for 10 minutes. So it would continue to expire. Everyone for 10 minutes feature a global standard next year, according to Bloomberg. AirDrops can indeed be a nuisance in normal settings. If you opt into receiving files from everyone and don't turn it off, you might find yourself on the receiving end of unwanted memes or worse. So could it be a security or safety thing? Well, how come it's rolling out there? Is this a thing that people want? Is it a thing that people would accept if they were relying on AirDrop for the transmission of information that they deemed really important to them and they had no other means for receiving it?
Why 10 minutes? Why isn't there an option just for every time, like unlimited, like the before?
It's a good question. It's good. Or set your own time threshold.
Sure.
Well, according to Quartz here, they say, why did Apple rush out the change unannounced in an unassuming update to iOS in early November and apply it only to Chinese iPhones? One clue may lie in what happened the month prior when Xi's anointment for a third term as China's leader was met with rare displays of public dissent. You see where this goes? You see how you go down the rabbit hole, don't you?
Yeah, and it's deep.
You go down the rabbit hole, don't you? And you start to wonder about Apple in general and their relationship with China, their reliance on China. They tried to diversify manufacturing, customer base in China, profits in China, and then any company that wants to do business in China, how there is an adjustment in many cases to how they operate within that structure, and other companies that are obviously not there. Companies like Google, for the most part, and Facebook, and Apple's other competitors who haven't made these concessions, so to speak. So this is some criticism that's going to be going in Apple's direction. I don't know how much, but it is with the spotlight that Elon is about to put on, and his willingness to basically go to this like transparent battleground by getting out in front of something and being so verbal and so upfront about it, where you know these guys are going to be mobilized. And I'm talking about those crowds below that are going to, attach to it and start to look for weaknesses in Apple's armor, so to speak. It's going to be a very interesting story to follow. Two absolute monsters and juggernauts about to figure out something or nothing. And by the way, people were saying, "Hey, Apple might get rid of Twitter," and at the time that sounded crazy. Everyone thought, "How can they? No way they're going to do that." But there's definitely a feeling now that it is a real possibility.